नमस्कार, गुड आफ्टरनून टू ऑल। आपका होस्ट और दोस्त सुनील शर्मा स्वागत करता है प्रभु से खास बात लाइव शो में। दोस्तों, एक अवेयरनेस का एक सिलसिला है, एजुकेट करने का तमाम रियल एस्टेट में हर एक स्टेक होल्डर को। आज हमारा 90 एपिसोड है और इसके लिए हमारे खास अतिथि, खास स्पीकर है गौतम चटर्जी साहब। स्वागत है आपका।
नमस्कार जी।
गौतम जी, काफ़ी अनुभव है, आईएएस तो है, साथ में हाउसिंग उनका दिल का विषय है, गृह निर्माण। और हाउसिंग डिपार्टमेंट हो, महाडा हो या रेरा हो, रेरा के फाउंडर चेयरमैन जब महारेरा बना महाराष्ट्र में, और काफ़ी अच्छा काम किया है। तो आज हम बात भी करेंगे रेरा द गेम चेंजर। दोस्तों, रेरा बना था रियल एस्टेट रेगुलेटरी अथॉरिटी 2016 में कि रियल एस्टेट पर एक प्रॉपर चैनलाइज हो, डिसिप्लिन हो, अनुशासन हो, और वो पिछले 5-6 सालों में देखेंगे 5-6 सालों में काफ़ी अचीव किया है। तो आज हम बात करेंगे रेरा द गेम चेंजर के बारे में। और हमारे जो स्पीकर्स हैं इनका मैं स्वागत करता हूं। महासेवा, महाराष्ट्र सोसाइटी वेलफेयर एसोसिएशन और MNS मीडिया न्यूज़ सर्विस की तरफ से एक ज्वाइंट गठबंधन है। ये एक ऐसा शो है जो अवेयर करता है, एजुकेट करता है एवरी सैटरडे 12 नून। तो गौतम जी, आपका स्वागत है इस खूबसूरत लाइन के साथ में। इत्र से कपड़ों का महकाना बड़ी बात नहीं, सेंट, इत्र से कपड़ों का महकाना बड़ी बात नहीं, मजा तो तब आए जब आपके किरदार में खुशबू आए, मजा तो तब आए जब आपके किरदार में खुशबू आए। और आपका जो किरदार है गौतम जी, मैं जब एज ए जर्नलिस्ट पिछले 8-10 सालों से देख रहा हूँ, हाउसिंग में थे आप, महाड़ा में थे, तो आपका दिल का विषय और आप दिल से जुड़ते हैं और काफ़ी लोगों को राहत मिलती है, हर एक स्टेक होल्डर को, कि आपके जो काम करने का तरीका है बेबाकी है। तो उससे और बहुत सारी चीज़ें आज भी रिटायर होने के बाद भी लगे हुए हैं, आज हमारे स्टूडियो में मौजूद हैं कि ये रेरा पर क्या क्या हो सकता है, आने वाले स्टॉल प्रोजेक्ट पे क्या हो सकता है, और रीडेवलपमेंट का जो विषय है, लोगों को अवेयर करना, एजुकेशन, उस पर हम डिस्कस चर्चा करके आगे कुछ नई चीज़ लेके आएंगे। गौतम जी, आपका स्वागत है। हमारे साथ में जुड़े हुए हैं पार्थसारथी, महासेवा के वाइस चेयरमैन है एस पार्थसारथी, और कुछ मिनटों में हाउसिंग गुरु रमेश प्रभु जी भी जुड़ेंगे। तो दोस्तों, मैं चाहूँगा आप सभी की तरफ से हमारे गौतम जी का स्वागत है। गौतम जी, जैसे आज का हमारा टॉपिक रखा रेरा द गेम चेंजर। रेरा के विषय में जैसे लोगों की मानसिकता है कि रेरा बना है तो सिर्फ बायर्स को बहुत न्याय दिलवा देगा या फिर बिल्डर का अंकुश लगा देगा। क्या कहेंगे इस बारे में कि लोगों की जो भ्रम है वो दूर हो और अवेयर हो रेरा के बारे में लोग?
शर्मा जी, सभी महासेवा के श्रोताओं को, दर्शकों को मेरा दिल से नमस्कार। और जैसा कि महासेवा शब्द में ही सेवा शब्द है, उसी तरह से सेवा भावना से ही काम करने का एक प्रयास मेरा रहा है। और उसी प्रयास से हमने जो है, जब ये नया एक्ट आया, सेंट्रल एक्ट रेगुलेशन, रेरा एक्ट, रियल एस्टेट रेगुलेशन एंड डेवलपमेंट एक्ट 2016, तो उसमें सबसे पहले फाउंडर चेयरमैन के नाते हमने कोशिश की कि इस एक्ट को इम्प्लीमेंट इस तरह से किया जाए कि जिसको हम कहते हैं लेटर एंड स्पिरिट से उसका इम्प्लीमेंटेशन हो। क्योंकि अक्सर देखा गया है हमारे देश में एक्ट तो बहुत अच्छे बन जाते हैं, लेकिन अगर इम्प्लीमेंटेशन ठीक न हो तो जिस कारणवश वो एक्ट लाया गया है, जिन परेशानियों से लोगों को बाहर निकालने के लिए कोई एक्ट अगर लाया गया है, तो उसका इम्प्लीमेंटेशन ठीक ढंग से न होने से वो सफल नहीं हो पाता है। तो इसीलिए हमको थोड़ा सा मैं वक्त लूँगा आपको ये साझा करने के लिए कि परेशानियाँ कौन सी थी। बहुत सारी परेशानियाँ थी, और रियल एस्टेट सेक्टर एक बड़ा ही इम्पॉर्टेंट सेक्टर माना जाता है, क्योंकि इसमें नेशनल GDP 8-9% है। इसमें बहुत सारे लोगों को रोज़गार मिलता है। इसमें बहुत सारी इंडस्ट्रीज़ हैं जो कि इसी पे डिपेंडेंट हैं। लेकिन इसके बावजूद भी जो है, और इसके अलावा आप देखेंगे कि सर्वसाधारण लोग, हम सभी लोग, हमारा लगभग 80%, 77 टू बी प्रिसाइज, हमारा जो है अपना एसेट जो है वो हाउस होल्ड एसेट में है। मतलब हमारे पास कुछ भी जब बचता है पैसा, तो हम उसको सबसे पहले सोचते हैं कि इसको हम रियल एस्टेट में, पहला तो खुद अपना घर हो, अगर अपना घर है तो इन्वेस्टमेंट के तौर पे अगर एक सेकेंड होम हो, इस तरह से ही हमारी सोच होती है। और इसलिए ये है इम्पोर्टेंस लेकिन ये सेक्टर 2016 से पहले इसमें बहुत सारी परेशानियां थी। अगर इसमें थोड़ा में हम बताएं कि परेशानी कौन कौन सी थी। सबसे पहली बात है कि एक घर खरीदने के लिए आपको जो है पूरा पैसा डालना पड़ता है। आपका जितना शायद ज़िंदगी भर की कमाई है उसको सबको बचा के आपको घर में डालना पड़ता है। और उसमें इंफॉर्मेशन एसिमेट्री, मतलब एक सूचना विषमता। हम जानना चाह रहे हैं कि मेरा घर कब तक बनेगा, कैसे बनेगा, और लोग जो है जो बना के दे रहे हैं हमको डेवलपर, वो इन्फॉर्मेशन हमसे शेयर ही नहीं कर रहा है। तो ये जो है इसके चलते और परेशानी बढ़ती थी कि हमारा जो एग्रीमेंट होगा वो एग्रीमेंट किस तरह से होगा, वो इन्वेरिएबली जो है इट विल बी इन द फेवर ऑफ द डेवलपर। और इस तरह का अगर उसमें हम जैसे कि साइन ऑन द डॉटेड लाइन, वो एग्रीमेंट का कॉपी आपको दे दिया, रात में कहा कि सुबह सुबह साइन करके दे दो, इस सारी परेशानियां। उसके बाद हम पैसा जो है बिल्डिंग बन रहा है नहीं बन रहा है, वो बोल रहा है कि आपका नेक्स्ट इंस्टॉलमेंट ड्यू, आप पैसा डालिए, हम डाल रहे हैं, और घर जो बनना चाहिए वक्त पे वो नहीं बन रहा है। तो इन सारी परेशानियों से, और इसका और भी एक कारण था कि हम जो पैसा डाल रहे थे प्रोजेक्ट ए में जहाँ पर मेरा घर मिलने वाला है, वो पैसा वहाँ ना जाके वो डेवलपर उसको डाइवर्ट कर रहा है प्रोजेक्ट बी में। इन सारी परेशानियों से दूर करने के लिए केंद्र सरकार ने ये सेंट्रल एक्ट लाया और राज्य सरकारों को कहा कि आप इसके रूल्स बनाइए और रियल एस्टेट रेगुलेटरी अथॉरिटी बनाइए। उसी लिहाज से महारेरा बना। अब उस महारेरा में सबसे बड़ी बात थी कि वो इन्फॉर्मेशन एसिमेट्री की, हमको इन्फॉर्मेशन के लिए मारा मारा फिरना पड़ता है, हमको किसी पर जो है डिपेंडेंट रहना पड़ता है कि हमारे घर का जो बन रहा है भाई नेक्स्ट प्लिंथ कब आएगा, प्लिंथ के ऊपर वाला स्लैब कब आएगा। इन सारे प्रश्नों का जो है हम किसी पे हम डिपेंड कर रहे हैं, और वो जो आदमी इस पे हम डिपेंड कर रहे हैं वो इन्फॉर्मेशन नहीं दे रहा है। और इसलिए ये अगर ऑनलाइन डिस्क्लोजर के तहत, मैंडेटरी डिस्क्लोजर की नियम के अनुसार इन सारी चीज़ों को जो है डेवलपर जिसके प्रोजेक्ट में हम पैसा डाल रहे हैं, घर खरीद रहे हैं, वो सारा इन्फॉर्मेशन हमको लोगों को मिल जाएगा ऑन द क्लिक ऑफ अ बटन। लेकिन ये अवेयरनेस तो कम से कम होना पड़ेगा हमको कि ये इन्फॉर्मेशन इस जगह पे ये इन्फॉर्मेशन अवेलेबल है। इन सारा इन्फॉर्मेशन को देखने के बाद ही जो है मैं घर खरीदने का निर्णय लूँगा। ये अवेयरनेस क्रिएट करना हम समझते हैं आप ये कर रहे हैं, और मैं चाहता हूँ कि ये अवेयरनेस और ज़्यादा क्रिएट हो ताकि लोग जब भी ये निर्णय लेने जाएं, जिसको हम कहते हैं वो निर्णय उनका इन्फॉर्म्ड चॉइस हो, और उस इन्फॉर्म्ड चॉइस करने के लिए उन लोगों को हम एम्पावर करें विथ इंफॉर्मेशन। आज के इस ज़माने में इंफॉर्मेशन इज़ द रियल स्ट्रेंथ जो कि हम लोगों को दे सकते हैं विथ मैंडेटरी ऑनलाइन डिस्क्लोजर। तो सिर्फ ये मान के चलना कि हाँ किसी ने बताया ओ तुम खरीद रहे हो घर, रेरा रजिस्टर्ड है, देख लिया ना, हाँ जी देख लिया, बस काफ़ी है, अब जाके खरीद लो, नहीं। सिर्फ रेरा रजिस्ट्रेशन होना वो आपका सर्च का एंड प्रोसेस नहीं है, वो आपका सर्च का बिगिनिंग प्रोसेस है। आप सबसे पहले जानेंगे हाँ रेरा रजिस्टर्ड है ना, उसके बाद आप चलेंगे उसमें ये जानने के लिए कि जो डेवलपर उस प्रोजेक्ट को बना रहा है उसका क्रेडेंशियल क्या है, उसने पहले कौन कौन से प्रोजेक्ट्स कंप्लीट किए हैं, टाइमली किए हैं या नहीं। फिर उस प्रोजेक्ट जहाँ पर हम पैसा डाल रहे हैं उसका लीगल टाइटल रिपोर्ट हम देखेंगे कि उसमें कोई गड़बड़ तो नहीं है, इनकम्बरेंस उस ज़मीन पे क्या है, कौन कौन सा कहाँ से उसने पैसा ले रखा है, ताकि कल होके अगर मान लीजिए प्रोजेक्ट ना हो पाया तो कौन आदमी आके बोलेगा कि नहीं ये तो हमने पैसा लगा के रखा, ये प्रोजेक्ट तो अब जो है मेरे पास आ गया। इन सब चीज़ों को देखने के बाद फिर जो है हम ये भी देखेंगे कि प्रोजेक्ट में क्या क्या अम्यूनिटीज़ मिल रहे हैं, प्रोजेक्ट में कितनी बुकिंग्स हुई हैं, मतलब लोग उसको पसंद कर रहे हैं कि नहीं। क्योंकि एक प्रोजेक्ट का कंप्लीट होना, लोग उस प्रोजेक्ट में अपना पैसा लगा के खरीद रहे हैं कि नहीं, उस पर भी निर्भर करता है। क्योंकि अगर लिक्विडिटी प्रोजेक्ट में नहीं आया तो भी प्रोजेक्ट जो है उसका कंप्लीशन डिले हो सकता है। इन सारी चीज़ों को देख के फिर मैं समझता हूँ खरीदना उचित रहेगा।
Now thank you sir, first of all given the opportunity of being present in this program, I am talking about myself. I am highly you may call it as a great opportunity, and I am obliged that Gautam sir has come to our office here and being part of today's show. I thank him for that first of all before beginning. Sir, I would just like to ask you one thing sir. In your tenure of 5 years as MahaRERA chairperson, you would have seen lots of ups and downs as far as the RERA administration or the actual authority is concerned sir. So would you please throw some light on what exactly the game changer part that we have mentioned, the title which we have given for today's show is the game changer. So what was not present earlier when RERA was not there, you have given an elaborate interpretation and explanation of what RERA site and what RERA actually is. But sir, if you could just enlighten us on what was not there present before the coming in of RERA and what is now available, which has actually made it as a game changer, sir.
It's a very good question, Parsarthi. Actually speaking, in Maharashtra, we had a 1963 Act. If you actually go into the contents of that Act, which is called MoFA, Maharashtra Ownership Flats Act, and if you see the content of this 92 section RERA Act, you will see there is a lot of similarity between the two.
Right.
All these information which is supposed to be put out today under RERA Act in the public domain as an online disclosure was also supposed to be made available by the developer to the buyer in the MoFA Act. However, that act mostly was abused in the sense that it was required for the developer to share all the information with the buyers, but it was not being done. What changed with RERA was that the use of information technology in trying to put out this information asymmetry being removed was the game changer in this act. Because if suppose the two people, a person is selling, the other person is accumulating all that he has accumulated over the life period to buy that product, are at two different levels, is something which can always result in conflict and clashes. By bringing them together at par, in whatever information is available with the developer has to be shared with this person, and not on the basis of that this person will keep on asking him ki bhai ye information do, and then only it will be shared with him. But the authority is preparing a format by which all this information will be out in the public domain, is something for him to immediately go and access it, was the real game changer. And in that information, all the other problems were also taken care of, because not completing a project in time was also plugged in the sense that the act put out a stipulation date by which he must complete. And not only for new projects, it also allowed those old legacy projects which were also getting stalled or not getting completed for years, staggering. Those projects were also given a lifeline, because RERA said you please register and you will be allowed to give a fresh timeline by which you will complete. And in Maharashtra there were about 15,000 such projects which were not getting completed, which came in, of which about 8,000-9,000 have got completed. Now, one would say that still 5,000-6,000 of those old projects did not get completed. But then we have to see the context. If there was no RERA, then maybe out of the 15,000, maybe 1,000 or 2,000 would have got completed. Right. RERA helped them in pushing them, one, to share all information, two, to have a timeline by which you will be able to complete, and three, most importantly, the problems that people faced under MoFA, you will have to go to a civil court or to the consumer court, which were already having huge burden of cases. Here the quasi-judicial forum that was created under RERA, where initially, to start with, decisions were within 2-3 months as the act stipulated. Now of course, with number of cases going up, efforts have been made to also try and resolve conflicts through conciliation forum. But then these three aspects of removing of the information asymmetry, two, bringing in this accountability and compliance among developers, that you have to stick to the timeline, you have to do everything in time, and three, whenever there is a problem, a conflict, a grievance, you will have a forum where you can immediately go without any difficulty and cost effective manner, and you will be able to get a decision. I think these are the three aspects by which I say that RERA is a game changer.
Yeah, actually we have heard it from the horse's mouth, because Chatterjee sir has always been associated with the real estate in his entire career, if I am not wrong. So he has seen the various aspects of the different planning authorities and what exactly happens in a real estate industry as a whole. So if he has approved this, if he has come out, and after being the former chairman of MahaRERA, and probably the person who has actually taken RERA to another a totally different tangent across the country as a whole, because I believe MahaRERA was the first which came into actual force and action. So he was actually setting standards for the other states to follow. Thank you so much, sir, for your elaborate explanation. Sunil ji.
बिल्कुल महाराष्ट्र का जो रेरा है महारेरा है वो बाहर से भी ट्रेनिंग लेने आते हैं, कुछ टीम बाहर से दूसरी स्टेट से भी आई थी, तो एग्जाम्पल दिया है गौतम जी, और गौतम सर के लिए सैल्यूट भी हो रहा है। चैट बॉक्स में देख रहा हूँ मैं, यूट्यूब पे जो लोग हमारे ऑडियंस देख रहे हैं, मैं चाहूँगा पार्था सर से कि कुछ एडवांस में क्वेश्चन आते हैं। गौतम सर, पहले जो हमारे ब्रॉडकास्ट ग्रुप में तो एडवांस में जो क्वेश्चन आते हैं जी, मैं चाहूँगा पार्था जी ले लीजिए।
Before we break, I'll just take one question before we'll go for a commercial break, for a 2-minute commercial break. I'll take one of the questions before we go for that break. First question is, most humbly and respectfully, I would like to ask, as a game changer, there are a lot of buyers, allottees in RERA registered project. They have got reliefs, but for a city like Mumbai, if redevelopment project is stalled, then as ex-chief of MahaRERA, what should be, whether there should be an amendment which has to be brought about in the RERA Act itself, or probably some of the rules may be amended as per the state-wise rules. So, if is there any recommendation from your side, sir?
It's a very good question. Essentially, especially Mumbai, because Mumbai is an aging city, and so are many other cities, big cities, and even over a period of time, you will have tier 2, tier 3 cities also becoming old. So, as cities become old, what is required is what we call urban renewal. And urban renewal essentially means that buildings, either individually or as an area development, as a cluster of buildings, will go in for redevelopment. Now, if redevelopment is not getting included in the Act because Section 3 of the Act gave an exemption clause to say that if there are buildings under redevelopment, that will not get covered here. A large aspect of this sector which is still under stress and which has problem, and people who have already gone in for redevelopment are in the pipeline of redevelopment, or people who feel that their building is now in a situation where in a few years time it will have to go in for redevelopment, have these questions in their mind that if suppose RERA, the game changer, is not available to me, then how do I go about this, and should I also face the same problem which a lot of people under redevelopment in the city are already facing.
Correct, sir.
Now, fortunately in Maharashtra, the aspect of redevelopment is not left to the people to spend money to get a redevelopment done.
Right.
The government in most of the redevelopment cases comes out with what is called as an incentive FSI to facilitate redevelopment. Now, for cess building redevelopment or for a slum redevelopment, the government actually does a cross subsidy of the total. You are entitled to get your own house free of cost if you are one of the existing tenants or existing residents, and the developer who puts in the money gets incentive FSI to sell so that he recovers his cost. Even for society redevelopment, in the last development plan 2034 of Mumbai, new incentive FSI has been built in, right, by which the society to a large extent can get the total cost of the project of redevelopment cross subsidized by getting this incentive FSI, which means that there will invariably be a sale component in every redevelopment.
Correct.
Now, if there is a sale component in redevelopment, that sale component 100% comes under the ambit of RERA. Now, a practice has been to keep the redevelopment out of RERA because the Act has given that exemption, and then when we come to the sale component, we will register that. But then that doesn't solve the problem of the people who are the existing society residents or existing tenants. So, in Maharashtra, we went into the Act and also the rules which have been framed by Maharashtra government, and Maharashtra government in the rules has also defined what is a redevelopment scheme, and Maharashtra government in its rules has also defined what is a phase of a project. So, the suggestion that I had made when I was the chairman of MahaRERA to the Maharashtra government was that for the purpose of redevelopment in Maharashtra, a phasing should include both rehab and free sale component. It was a very simple suggestion, which means that you will not allow a developer to break up a redevelopment project into phases of rehab phase and a free sale phase. You will have to include both the phases together as one project. Now, as soon as you include the whole thing as one project, then the whole RERA will apply to the project. Now, this suggestion I think can be pursued by MahaSeWA with the Maharashtra government, so that at least this difficulty that people face and this fear that people have that if redevelopment is not covered under the game changer legislation, then we are in for trouble.
Exactly. So, to hit the nail here, if the redeveloped society is also getting the advantage of what the new purchases are going to get.
Correct.
So, we both are at par.
Correct.
So, then this game changer actually will come into effect. And yes, as rightly suggested.
And to add what I was just telling you, Partha, before this thing we started, is that in a redevelopment, because a redevelopment is a brownfield project,
Correct.
there are many aspects which will come in before the project takes shape and the IOD or CC is issued, and you will then go for RERA registration. But much before that, there is a lot of homework that has to take place before the society readies itself to go in for redevelopment. I think there is need for some sort of an information asymmetry to be removed there also, so that any society which is looking for how do I go for redevelopment should be able to access maybe a website of MahaSeWA, a special website where you will be able to tell them the sequence wise as to how they should go about to bring it to that stage where they will then go for RERA.
Exactly. So, sir was very kind enough to actually before the start of this program, sir was very kind enough to actually suggest that there should be also some sort of an information platform wherein, like similar to RERA, wherein all redevelopment projects should have the latest information or whatever is happening, the latest updates on what's happening on the redevelopment front. So, as per sir's suggestion, we'll surely work on that, and we'll surely try to, along with Mr. Ramesh Prabhu, we'll try to get to the government as well, and also to the society, so that there is a sort of a symbiotic output which is coming out of it.
You can take me in if you feel.
Yes, absolutely, sir. There is no reason.
इस विषय पे जो स्टॉल प्रोजेक्ट और ये रीडेवलपमेंट का मुंबई का है, तो अभी उपाध्याय काफी सारे वेबिनार्स भी किए थे ऑनलाइन डिजिटल, तो अभी पिछले 3 महीने पहले तो यही मुद्दा आया था कि रीडेवलपमेंट 80% है, तो उसमें रेरा का जितना पार्ट्स होना चाहिए रीडेवलपमेंट के लिए भी कुछ पीआईएल या कुछ ऐसे सजेशन जाने चाहिए गवर्नमेंट को कि उन लोगों को भी राहत मिले।
नहीं, पीआईएल की क्या जरूरत, हर चीज के लिए क्यों कोर्ट को आप परेशान करते हैं? मैंने तो आपको अभी बता दिया कि ये सिंपल सा सजेशन ऑलरेडी है, तो इसमें अपना एडवोकेसी यूज करके महाराष्ट्र सरकार को अगर आप कहेंगे तो मैं समझता हूँ कि इसको अमल में ला सकते हैं।
बिल्कुल सर, ये सजेशन आपका सराहनीय, और इस पर आगे बढ़ेंगे हम लोग। वक्त हो चला है छोटे से ब्रेक के बाद हम बात करेंगे। हमारे सवाल है एडवांस में जो एडवोकेट प्रशांत जैन साहब का गोरेगांव से, उनका सवाल लेंगे ब्रेक के बाद।
डीम्ड कन्वेंस एक कानूनी प्रावधान है। सोसाइटी बनाने का 4 महीने के अंदर बिल्डर या लैंड ओनर को सोसाइटी के नाम से ज़मीन और बिल्डिंग हस्तांतर करके देना चाहिए। यदि वो नहीं करके देते हैं, आप डिस्ट्रिक्ट डिप्टी मजिस्ट्रेट के पास जाके अपना कन्वेंस ले सकते हैं। इस प्रोसेस को डीम्ड कन्वेंस बताया जाता है। प्रभु एसोसिएट की तरफ से अभी तक 200 या 250 के ऊपर कन्वेंस गए 10 साल में कर चुके हैं।
शशि आचार्य, हेड ऑफ द डिपार्टमेंट फॉर कन्वेंस। डीम कन्वेंस का 4 स्टेजेस होता है। पहला स्टेज है डीडीआर के, हम लोग एप्लीकेशन फाइल करता है और 6 महीने में ऑर्डर मिलता है। एडजुडिकेशन, कलेक्टर सब एग्रीमेंट एडजुडिकेट करके देखता है वेदर प्रॉपर स्टैम्प ड्यूटी और रजिस्ट्रेशन किया है कि नहीं। सब रजिस्टर और एश्योरेंसेस जो कन्वेंस डीड रजिस्टर करके देते हैं। एंड लास्ट स्टेज इज नेम चेंज इन प्रॉपर्टी कार्ड, सिटी सर्वे डिपार्टमेंट। फर्स्ट स्टेज में 6 महीना लगता है डीडीआर के यहाँ। सेकेंड स्टेज में 3 महीना लगता है एडजुडिकेशन। तीसरा स्टेप सब रजिस्टर और एश्योरेंसेस, इसमें 3 महीना लगता है। एंड द लास्ट स्टेज नेम चेंज इन प्रॉपर्टी कार्ड भी 3 महीना लगता है। कुल मिला के सब 1.5 साल में हो जाता है। अगर आपका कुछ क्वेरीज हो तो मेरा मोबाइल नंबर है 9821234770।
स्वागत है। फ्रेंड्स, जो आप लोग सवाल YouTube पे चैट बॉक्स में डाल रहे हो और महोत्सव टीवी चैनल पे जो भी लोग देख रहे हैं हमारे ऑडियंस, आप मेरे मोबाइल पर व्हाट्सअप करें अपने सवाल इन फ्यूचर जो हमारे लाइव शो है। मेरा नंबर है 9920378133। आपका होस्ट दोस्त सुनील शर्मा। आप जो भी सब्जेक्ट हो, टॉपिक हो, आप मुझे आप मेरे ब्रॉडकास्ट ग्रुप में ऐड हो सकते हैं। रिक्वेस्ट डाल के अपने नाम और अपना नंबर मुझे दे दें व्हाट्सएप पे। तो जैसा कि हमने बात किया था, रीडेवलपमेंट का एक बड़ा विषय है, तो उस पर भी हम आगे जाने वाले रमेश प्रभु जी के नेतृत्व में आगे किस तरह से हम सरकार तक ये आवाज़ पहुंचाएं ताकि उन लोगों को भी राहत मिले, जैसे गौतम सर ने जो सजेशन दिया। अभी हमारे जो एडवांस सवाल है वो उसका सिलसिला शुरू करते हैं। प्रशांत जैन साहब है गोरेगांव से।
अभी नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन इज, सर, इज there is a urgent need for the model agreement which needs to be implemented, executed, and which even the apex court has said that there are some developers who are still, even after the directions from the court, are trying to act in some different uncharacteristic way. So what in your experience, how should such a situation be taken care of?
No, actually speaking, if you go into the provision of section 13 of the act, which talks about that if a person is buying any apartment, then the developer should not collect more than 10% before he entered into a registered sale agreement, and that sale agreement will be as prescribed. That is what the act says. So whenever an act uses such sort of a term, that it will be as prescribed, it is invariably means that the respective state governments should actually go and frame the model form of agreement. Maharashtra was one of the first to do that, and many states have already done it. I think that matter has been brought to the notice of the Honorable Supreme Court, that the respective state governments have done. So as far as Maharashtra is concerned, there is already a model form of agreement. Even when I was chairman, initially because projects had to get registered and they were mostly ongoing projects, we had given this leeway to the developers that if you are immediately while registering not able to put up the model form of agreement, you should do that within a relative time frame, a reasonable time frame. However, I am happy that the present chairman has insisted that a registration of a project will not take place unless right at the upfront you upload what is your model form of agreement. Now, once a model form of agreement is uploaded and is available to a buyer in the public domain, because it's available on the website, then it's again advised that we should have that awareness to open the model form of agreement and try and see whether that which has been uploaded on the RERA website for that project, whether it is in conformity with the model form of agreement which is there in the rules of the Maharashtra government. Right. Now, this has to be seen. Ultimately, that if you are not aware, being unaware later on cannot be an excuse to say then I did not see that. You will have to do that. Now, after you have seen that whether it is in conformity or not, then you have the forum available where wherever you find that it is not conforming to what should be as per the rules set out by the Maharashtra government, then you should immediately reach out to the developer to say that this model form of agreement is not in accordance with what is expected of you, and therefore I am not going to go ahead and buy your project. You understand? Today it has become a buyer's market. It's no longer a seller's market. Right. With all the information of all the projects available in the public domain, now the builders will have to struggle to tell you that no, don't go away from me, don't go to my rival developer, please buy it from me. So you always have that edge in trying to tell him that the model form of agreement you are trying to give to me is not in accordance with or not in conformity, number one. Number two, if suppose you go ahead and by mistake you have to go ahead and sign the agreement, and at a later date you realize that no, in the model form of agreement or in the agreement that I have signed, there are certain aspects which might go against me, immediately you should actually raise it in the forum, a quasi-judicial forum or a conciliation, to say that no, this is wrong. So I think that is already available. As far as Maharashtra is concerned, the model form of agreement is available. Developers are supposed to abide by that. Any changes in that would be something which is in conformity with the provisions of the Act and the rules. If beyond that he does something, then it is liable to be brought to the notice of the MahaRERA authority, who can penalize the developer for that.
Actually, just to add to this, I believe there is another aspect of actually filing in a deviation report now, which has been lately introduced in MahaRERA, wherein if a developer is not if the agreement is not uploaded as per the model form, he is supposed to also upload a self declaration that why there are some deviations in that report. So that
That's
is
very
also
good.
been incorporated. So I welcome CA Ramesh Prabhu to this program here. Sir, Gautam ji has been very kind enough to come to our office and be part of today's Prabhu say Khas Baat. So we have been taking up some of the questions,
Yeah,
sir.
yeah.
So before
I
that,
was listening to on my traveling.
yeah.
I was,
So
going through on
so
it
before
before.
that, you may please.
Yeah, 3-4 aspects which he has already covered. Yes, what is RERA, how it has been a game changer regarding redevelopment, now the model agreement, which are all vital. Now, sir, when you look at the redevelopment or real estate development, especially we have seen identified 3 stakeholders. One is promoter, estate agent, as well as allottees. Now the question arises, Maharashtra, yes, when you started a process of registration, you have tried to bring as many developers as possible or the project to get registered with RERA. Now having established or having done that, now what is your gut feeling or what is your assessment as to whether the promoters have started accepting RERA, whether they have started complying as required under the RERA, or is there any still a gap which need to be looked into so that the end result is met?
Well, I will not be able to say whether the gap which was there this much has already totally been reduced to zero or not, but to a large extent, as I mentioned, and as your topic also suggests, that it's a game changer. It has been really a game changer in reducing this gap. That was a huge gap. Now that huge gap has already got reduced to the extent that the problem essentially today has been mostly with the legacy projects. RERA Act, when it was brought in and was activated in 2017, along with the act brought in also the old projects with all the overhangs and the problems that the old projects had, especially of cost overrun and time overrun. All such projects which run into thousands. In Maharashtra itself, we were able to bring in around 15,000 such projects. Now those projects were brought in, and initially I had thought that maybe a transition of 3 to 4 years would be sufficient to bridge that gap of the problem of time and cost overrun, and we will be able to cover all these projects. We have been able to do maybe 60-70% of those old projects, but the 30% project, which is also 5,000-6,000 old projects, is a huge number. And 5,000-6,000 projects means huge number of people, maybe few lakhs of people are still there in those projects which may have become today stressed or stalled, and we'll have to find solution to that. So that problem certainly remains. We'll have to look and actively work towards solving that. As far as new projects which came in after the RERA Act came in, I feel to a large extent the information asymmetry has been removed because all information has been put out in the public domain. But then the problems may still remain, because if that information that is put out is not made use of by proper awareness of the buyer, then again there might be a problem that the buyer may face later on. So as I mentioned, it's not sufficient for the buyer to then see that it's a RERA registered project, because today I will say hardly there is maybe 0.001% project which without registration a person is trying to push and sell. That is not happening in Maharashtra. So all the projects have come under the ambit of RERA. Number 2, all the projects are putting out information, but if there is a gap in the information of incompleteness or maybe wrong information, it has to be brought to the notice of RERA. After the necessary checks that RERA has done, still there could be an aspect where that information is not complete, and the person who is buying, he should not make the buy decision unless he has all the information that is complete. That awareness level, we will all have to work towards creating that awareness, and people will also have to push for that information to come to him before he makes a decision. That we will have to achieve. Once we achieve that, then I think it will be a robust sector which will only grow and develop.
Yes, sir, you are rightly pointed out. Any new policies or any new law comes in or any that changes that we look at, normally the awareness is the key factor. And once we have done that awareness aspect, the next comes, of course, the appreciating as to what has been done and then accepting it. So once you accept it, then the appreciation do come. So right now, as I also understand rightly, that the people have been asking only one keyword, whether it is a RERA registered project. Once it is RERA registered project, they blindly go and do it. So the due diligence which need to be done by the allottees, yes, that is missing. But at the same time, as you were in the RERA, you have been always advocating and you have been saying to the promoters that anything related to the approval, any process, anything is left out, that need to be disseminated, that need to be uploaded on the website. I personally feel that is not been happening. Whatever is the information which is mandatorily required, that has been uploaded. An additional disclosure which normally is required is not being uploaded. I think that is one more, change in the mindset.
I would feel that is also a lack of awareness among the developers.
Okay.
The developers also need to understand that more the transparency, more the sharing of the information, the better it is for them. I think they have to get into that. You see, this sector for a long period of 70 years has been an unregulated, unorganized sector. It is now that in the last 5 years, we are trying to bring it into the organized sort of a framework. Still, in the first few years, we were struggling to deal with the legacy projects. When we are done with that legacy projects, when we come into an area where we are dealing with new projects and everything is post-RERA project, then I think this type of awareness even among developers should be there. For example, in a project which a developer is selling first sale, second, third, fourth and so on, the developer still feels how long can I delay the process of formation of that association of allottees or a cooperative society, which according to me is quite foolish. According to me, right from day one, as soon as the first buyer comes, he should form the WhatsApp group of the buyers. The buyer should know that the second person who is buying into the project is Mr. So and so. The names and all the details, that transparency should also be brought in, because ultimately they are going to live together, they are going to form a society. If there is a problem also that the developer faces in getting approval and other things, he should get the help of the buyers. Because as I said the other day, these people are not home buyers, they are home owners. As and when the developer starts selling a home, that much equity from him is going into that buyer and he is becoming the owner. So this level of transparency is something that I would expect in this RERA regime from the developer. So when I say awareness among the buyers, I think we also need, because you also work with the developer community, you need to also tell them, the likes of Naredco, Credai, that please come out of this mindset that the least information I share, I share only the mandated information. भाई मैंने काम कर दिया. I don't think that is the correct approach.
In fact, sir, 2-3 seminars which we have attended, sir has always been advocating कि जो भी आपके पास कागज है उसको आप upload कर दीजिए ताकि you are not going to face the tune afterwards.
Precisely. As I said, you see, I have been also saying that you have applied maybe for the OC. Correct. And the OC is not coming. What stops you from, as soon as you make that application or OC, also upload that information so that you are right. I did the project in time, I applied for the OC, I am not getting an OC. Yeah. So this is the level of transparency which I would expect to be actually brought in by the developer community.
Sir, just to share with you the latest development which is happening in RERA, of course you will be in touch with them. They try to integrate, they want to integrate one IGR website with the MahaRERA, so that the IGR will capture the inspector of registrar and IGR, that is Inspector General of Registration and Chief Revenue Controlling Authority of Maharashtra. They have got a website which is a good website where all the registered agreements are getting uploaded and it is available for the public to see. So there, whatever is the project that is approved with the names of the flat in the area, all that will be given to IGR, and the IGR will create an icon so that once it is registered, that will be known to the public. That is, this is where the agreement is registered. This is the person who has purchased the flat. His Aadhaar card, PAN number, everything will be available. So this is one process which is under the discussion with the IGR. When I met, Hadkar, Shravan Hadkar sir, who is a
he's an outstanding officer.
Yeah.
He's very good.
So he is trying to integrate that. Second development which IGR also has done now, which of course you must be aware, that they don't have to go to the sub-registrar's office to register the agreement. It is getting registered in the promoter's office itself, wherein even on Sundays, Saturdays, so you are able to register the agreement. that ease of registration also is
Very
happening.
good.
Third thing which of course MahaRERA is looking at and trying to work out is about the integrating all the competent authority where the planning authority, the approval authorities are there. All the online information available over there, a link will be given, shared with the MahaRERA registered project, so that the approval process which is getting rooted in the IGR planning authority also will be available to allottees. I think that is a great step which RERA is now initiating, which again I welcome. Now, as I said, sir, Maharashtra, we had a Maharashtra Ownership Land Act. It though started in the year 1963 and implemented in 1964 onwards. If you have observed up to 2018, there was no authority to monitor that. In the year 2018, MoFA was amended, where a competent authority was delegated power only for three purposes. One is to give a transparency in the accounts which is received by the promoters under section 5 of MoFA. Whatever money is received for the maintenance or for the society formation, share capital, all that should be given. Otherwise, we can go to the competent authority, get the information. Second was not forming an association of allottees, that is a housing society, where we allottees can go more than 50% people, get the society registered under non-cooperation. Third was regarding the deemed conveyance. Now these are the three delegated power. Now the same power of course now is with RERA. What I find is that these three things are still not getting complied by especially the promoters. In fact, promoters are writing a clause in the agreement saying that any money which is received other than the consideration, they will not be entitled to ask for the accounts. They cannot. When we go to RERA, so competent authority, they are saying these are the already agreed upon, that we will not share the details of the maintenance, we will not give the details of society formation, development charges, how and where it has been spent. So this is one challenge which I am still saying after post RERA, formation of society is not happening, association which you have pointed out, conveyance is also not happening. Even about 15 days back, or rather before retirement, Dr. Sarveer Singh also has passed an order for leaving a penalty of 10 lakh rupees for not giving a conveyance. And then of course society formation, conveyance, and this transparency in accounts. How you think that RERA will be able to achieve this?
No, the RERA Act covers all the 3 points.
Absolutely correct.
If suppose on the accounts part, if there is still some gap where or some understanding, misunderstanding that this is not covered under RERA, nothing prevents the RERA authority to, through a resolution, require that that information also has to be shared. So as far as the legislation and the subordinate legislation is concerned, all the 3 aspects are covered adequately under the Act. What we are seeing is that again a legacy behavior where people were used to not forming a society. Many times, in fact, I have heard developer coming and saying that the people themselves are not interested in forming this society.
I agree.
So this is also maybe 5% will be that case, but 95% I don't think that is the situation. And as I mentioned to you, if suppose I right from day one, as soon as I buy into a project, if I know who are my neighbors, that information, if you actually, and there are some developers, I know a developer in Pune who says that as soon as people start buying, I create a WhatsApp group, so that they have already formed into an association, and that association keeps on increasing. Then in that case, the formation of the association of allottees or society should not be a problem. It's again a mindset problem. I think over a period of time, by pushing, we should be able to achieve that. Second will come of the conveyance. The conveyance, usually developers have been very wary of going ahead with the conveyance, is because the policies of the government also have been allowing more and more incentive over a period of time. What happened today, a few days back in the Noida case, the super take, was one classic case of that. That with 1.5 FSI going up to 2, then going up to 2.75, the developer feels as long as I can hold on to the ownership, the FSI and extra thing that will come in my way. And that is something which actually the Act has said that no, there is a timeline before which you must do the conveyance. Now, one can debate whether that timeline provided in section 17, if I am not mistaken,
17, yes,
whether that timeline is a reasonable one or not, or should one see what is a reasonable timeline that should be provided, so that at least in that time people will be able to convey the property which is rightfully belonging to the society, is an area where I think the RERA, the All India Forum of RERA, also had deliberated and had decided that yes, maybe that 3 months beyond the formation of society is maybe a little shorter time. It should go up to about 6 months to 1 year. I also feel that yes, that should be the time, but then it should not be an unending process of not happening, and then you are trying to go through the deemed conveyance process. I think these are 3 areas where the Act has taken cognizance of that. In the implementation, I think we will have to continue to push and continue to do advocacy.
Sir, RERA has been a game changer, I do agree. But I just want to understand from your assessment again, whether there has been a lot of expectation, the expectation is so much with the allottees that you need to do some miracle, or there should be some magic which can happen because of the RERA. Is the expectation has gone up too much, or is it that the RERA is really has been able to bring some changes?
You see, again, the Act
Yeah.
brought in and put at par both legacy projects and new projects.
That's correct.
Now, when legacy projects are brought in, and rightly so, because as even in the Nilkamal judgment, the High Court observed that the first time something which was not talked about in MoFA also has been talked about in RERA, that the purpose of the Act is to register a project to get it completed.
That's correct.
And therefore, projects which were incomplete prior to RERA coming in were brought in under the ambit of the Act. But you have to understand, then you bring in a legacy projects and bring in all the problems of the legacy projects, time overrun, cost overrun, agreements not in proper shape, this, that, and many other problems. When you bring them in, and we have a new Act where any new agreement, anything new is all in accordance with the Act, cannot be put at par. If you put them at par, then the expectation of the people who are suffering for years for these old projects is something that magic should happen and I should immediately get everything. Whereas here, people are more aware, problems also are less because everyone is complying, accountability is much more, problems also less. At one point of time, remember, 95% of the total complaints that were filed were all pertaining to the old projects, the ongoing projects. So, the expectation of those people who were not getting any relief or a much delayed relief under the MoFA, I think to a large extent got relief under this Act. But then the expectation would be certainly that now a new Act has come, I should get everything. To that extent, it may not have happened. But I have a feeling that to a large extent, there is discipline in the sector. Developers, all developers, new projects, they have come in. There is also fear that I should not do in something which is non-compliant with the provision of the Act. I think these are major achievements.
Sir, of course, there is a lot of things that can be done. One of the things will take another 5 to 10 minutes. By 1 o'clock, we'll just conclude. So, taking one small step forward, the RERA in the Act itself, they have given a lot of weightage to the professionals.
Yeah.
Now, especially the architect, the engineer, and of course the chartered accountant, dealing with 3 major execution pillar of real estate project. One is related to planning, second is about the project execution
and finance,
and the third one is related to finance. Now, in your experience of last 5 years, which you have seen from the inception till you are, and even today, whether these 3 professionals have been able to meet the expectation of either the provisions of the Act or the expectation of the promoter, real estate agent, or even though that matter allottee and the authority themselves itself. What is your assessment?
Well, basically the Act, as you rightly said, brought in aspects of implementation where the RERA authority will not do a micromanagement.
That's correct.
But will expect that these sets of professionals would do what is expected of a professional and put in the necessary checks and balances so that everything moves smoothly. So, if you ask me, to a large extent, yes, the 3 professionals, they were doing their job earlier also. They continue to do their job as per the provisions of the Act, but then they will also have to, I think we should also try, and as for developers, we created self-regulatory organizations.
That's correct.
The organization of architects, the organization of engineers, the organization of chartered accountants, I think there has to be a dialogue of the RERA authorities with them to try and see as to what more as a professional. Though one has to understand that every professional is actually employed by the developer. So there is a relationship where he feels that since I am employed by the developer, I am under him. But then as a professional, the act requires him to also act independently and to perform what is expected of him as his professional advice. I would have a feeling that maybe we can bring in further SOPs with this discussion of these organization of these bodies. They are well organized bodies. The PETA, the Engineers Concrete Association or whatever, Chartered Accountants are very well organized. I have a feeling that we need to further deliberate on this and bring out SOPs so that at least these professionals can perform even much better role and to ensure better compliance of the act.
Okay. Sir, we have seen, in Gujarat RERA, there was a chartered accountant who was called by the RERA in the one of the, proceedings where allotee had paid the money to the promoter and he had shown it as a loan. And of course, that was certified by the chartered accountant also as a loan. Then he was interrogated. He said, I did not do my due diligence, and then disciplinary action was initiated against him. So I think the professionals also need to be more accountable. And we have seen in one of the projects in Maharashtra also, where during your time matter went up to appellate tribunal, then the High Court, where the order has been confirmed that a disciplinary action has to be initiated against an architect who gave a report when the project was not completed, the project is completed. So I think some precautionary measure need to be taken, and they should not be carried away by what the promoter is saying, but they should definitely do their professional assignment.
Yes, so that is the way to go about that, Mr. Prabhu, I am saying is, rather than these precedences of a case where the authority passes a penal order against, I would feel that we should talk to those bodies where these people are members, professionals, and create SOPs, and that SOP we actually disseminate to all the members so that they know beforehand what is expected of them.
Sir, before we conclude, yes, we have seen the various development that has been happening, and I think RERA has been doing a wonderful job. Now, only one last challenge which we as a professionals involved in the litigation, we find that the implementation of certain orders which have been passed by the RERA is not getting implemented as required. So what is your take on that?
No, there are a few aspects which will have to be, now that we have completed 5 years, and if we try and assess what have been the hits and misses in these 5 years, one is certainly an area where if an order has been passed, the execution of that order, if it doesn't take place, then the one starts wondering whether the order has any value or not. It's a small percentage, but then still that also has to be brought down. So maybe rules under section 40 of the Act, where the RERA itself takes in that responsibility to see how we can implement that, is an area that has to be worked with. One. Two is large number of projects, as I said, are stalled, stressed. There has to be effort to try and see how do we take it towards completion, where I think the other stakeholders which are also having stakes in the project, like the landowners, the financial institutions, they will also have to be brought in under the ambit of the Act through proper amendment, so that you are able to properly deal with the stressed projects. Number three, there has been a continuous refrain that approving authorities are also not accountable for their acts of omission and commission. I think there has to be some sort of a fear instilled there in order to make them accountable to this authority, RERA authority. These are some of the areas I think which one has to start working on to make the Act more robust.
That's correct. See, last, of course, a stalled project, any discussion cannot, end without stalled project. Yes, 4,500 approximately is the lapsed project. Maybe around 3,000 must be genuinely stalled. The litigation has been one of the reasons for getting stalled project further extended, and there is arbitration, there is a High Court, there is a civil court. There are various multiple forums where the litigations are happening. I have observed, or I have seen from your handling the cases, whenever these type of litigations are happening, unless until the stakeholders come together.
Correct.
And then they sit together, understand each other's concerns and the difficulties, and then they do not move forward. I think that is again one more the challenge. I will just share with you one of the projects where you have intervened and done a wonderful job. That was about a SRA project which was in Mulund, and about 10 to 12 years the project was not moving, and where of course we approached you with 30 allottees. We formed an association of 30 allottees, came to you, and you were kind enough to bring the promoters and the allottees together and understand as to what could be done. And then you said no, now that allottees are there, they want to remain in the project, you register the agreement, you see that projects are completed, then otherwise I will give it to the allottees and they will complete, you will be out of the project. That fear and the discussion that you did with the promoter definitely made a change, and then we as an association came and gave a new developer. This is Aishwarya Heights at Mulund,
Okay.
SRA project,
Okay.
which was done by Mr. Pandit. He could not, he was an investor, there was some differences between the investor and the promoter.
That is the best part, Prabhu, that I don't recall that I would have done this.
Yeah,
But if it has
see,
happened, I am
today,
so happy
sir,
you are sharing this with me.
Today, sir, that project, SRA project,
Very nice.
because you were a SRA CEO, understand how
Very nice.
things were difficult, and I think that is a heads up. And today the project is standing. People
Lovely.
are have applied for the OC. I think in next 2 to 3 months we will get a OC. People are so happy, and there was a very 30 people coming to us. Sir, you won't believe, one of the allottees did take it to the this one, what you call, appellate tribunal. Chandiwala Sab was there, and when we submitted all 30 consent terms, he was surprised because we agreed to pay 2,000 rupees extra per square foot.
Correct.
That was one discussion in the feasibility we saw, and all 30 people agreed to pay 2,000 rupees per square foot extra. Secondly, we also agreed to amend the plan where from 600 square foot they agreed to take 450 square foot so that the sellable area can be increased so that the project becomes viable.
Excellent.
So this consensus was done, and then the new developer also gave some incentives because of this.
Interestingly, Mr. Prabhu, there are few, maybe you have mentioned one,
Yeah,
there are
yeah.
few more now I am able to recall, where with this complete transparency and bringing stakeholders together, problems have been solved. I would suggest that MahaSeWA can take up
Yeah.
and compile these as case studies, so that basically when such case studies go out to the people, then people start thinking that this is replicable.
That's correct.
And many such stressed, stalled projects can get resolved
Sure.
through these good examples.
Absolutely, we will definitely venture into it, and I may require your.
I'm always
full
available.
support.
Sir is open to our
So-
all our
Yes, yes. So
endeavors
I think-
actually.
and we will definitely do. And sir, now in the last week we had Maharashtra, the pillars of Maharashtra, where from a different stakeholders. What we did was from the hotel industry, from entertainment, and then various sectors. Not to name the sector, even real estate,
Okay.
advocacy, RTI, the people who made a difference in the lives of the Maharashtrian and Maharashtra, especially in the development. And you were one of the, or rather, I'm saying you are the one
Yes.
who had taken a lot of initiative in the real estate, and of course.
पिलर्स ऑफ महाराष्ट्र अवार्ड 2022
Thank you जी.
एक झलक देखेंगे आज तक पे काफी लाइव हुआ था ये अनिल गलगली प्रोफेशनल्स काफी सारे थे
Very
आरटीआई
good.
के थे तो आपने जो योगदान दिया सर उसके लिए हम उस दिन अब थोड़ा स्वास्थ्य
नहीं
था
आ
लेकिन
पाया।
आज हम वो लोगों से शेयर करना चाहेंगे वो अवार्ड
अच्छी बात है।
पहले हम एक 2 मिनट का एक क्लिप देख लेते हैं आज तक पे जो चला था वाईबी चौहान में आपने थोड़ा मिस किया होगा तो हम
जी,
यहीं पे
जी,
लोगों को
जी,
भी दिखाएं।
जरूर जरूर गोपाल शेट्टी को भी देखा था।
गोपाल
Yes, Gopal
शेट्टी
Shetty was
हाँ
not,
पिलर्स ऑफ महाराष्ट्र अवार्ड वाईबी
Laram.
चौहान में काफी दर्जनों लोगों को दिया था जो अपने अपने क्षेत्र में संगीत में, लेकिन ये जो अवार्ड्स जो देश के सबसे कम उम्र के सभापति स्पीकर राहुल नार्वेकर
ओह,
साहब,
अच्छा अच्छा
वो भी गेस्ट थे और उनको भी दिया गया। गोपाल
Very
शेट्टी
good.
सांसद बड़ी अच्छी बेबाकी से एक ऐसा यूथ है राहुल नार्वेकर साहब कि अच्छा ज्यादा एज भी नहीं 44 है।
एब्सोल्युटली
हाँ,
एंड
I
वेरी
think
वेरी
engaged speaker as well.
Very
यस
good,
यस
very
देश का सबसे कम उम्र के
क्या आर्टिकुलेट है
Yes.
स्पीक सो वेल
And all 3 languages he has a
यस
command.
यस यस
या दैट्स राइट
So he was there.
व्हाट्सएप पे दिया मैंने। वीडियो हम बाद में दिखा देंगे, पहले हम सर को चाहेंगे कि जो योगदान रियल एस्टेट में दिया है, तो ये काफ़ी सारे फिल्म स्टार, काफ़ी टीवी स्टार्स और अलग अलग फिल्म हैं, RTI, उन सभी को दिया गया था पिलर्स ऑफ महाराष्ट्र अवार्ड 2022 YB चौहान हॉल, यशवंतराव चौहान हॉल में। तो विनोद संपत साहब थे वहाँ पर, उनको भी अवार्ड दिया गया। ऐसे
अकुल मेहता, ये तो हमारे सोसाइटी के मेंबर है।
सोसाइटी के मेंबर है।
ओके गुड।
गोपाल शेट्टी जी,
इनका भी जो है, जब मैं महानगर पालिका में था वहाँ पे कॉर्पोरेटर
कारपोरेटर
ही इज आल्सो डिफरेंट।
वेरी गुड।
मेरी भी, मैं कवर कर रहा हूँ सर, जब कारपोरेटर थे जब से कवर कर रहा हूँ मैं प्रॉपर गोपाल
हैव लॉट
शेट्टी।
ऑफ रिगार्ड फॉर हिम।
चलो थैंक यू। सो लेट अस यू नो शेयर दैट अवार्ड विद यू टुडे। वी
तो आप
इट इज आवर प्रिविलेज टू
सर वो
Yeah.
ओके, तुलसी
Yes, sir. This is from MahaSeWA,
थैंक यू जी।
and we, from the bottom of heart, we definitely appreciate
Yes.
your efforts and you know making
आप
the real
सभी से
estate
चाहेंगे कांग्रेचुलेशन
pillars of
और
Maharashtra.
लाइफ टाइम ये जो
Yes.
महाराष्ट्र स्तंभ पुरस्कार, महाराष्ट्राचे स्तंभ पुरस्कार।
वेरी नाइस, थैंक यू सो मच।
Yes, sir. This is our memento.
वाह,
फोटोग्राफ ले लें।
थैंक यू सो मच।
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
ठीक।
So you can just share your concluding thoughts.
नहीं, as I mentioned that MahaSeWA is already doing this seva, and this seva should continue to create more awareness in society. That is how all the legislation and other things of real estate sector will become more effective. Thank you
Yes,
so
sir.
much.
सर
Thank you.
कमेंट्स जो YouTube पे आ रहे हैं, एक आपके चाहने वाले और आपने जो योगदान दिया है भारत रत्न के लिए कह रहे हैं, तो लच्छू राजवानी जी हैं, और आप पे काफ़ी सारे हमने सवाल भी, लेकिन सवाल नहीं लिए, सवाल रिलेटेड है। लेकिन मैं आपसे चाहूँगा कि ये 90 एपिसोड है, तो 100 एपिसोड जब होगा हमारा, हम स्टॉल प्रोजेक्ट और रीडेवलपमेंट जो आपका
बुलाइएगा जरूर, भूल मत
बिल्कुल
जाइए।
100 आपका अभी से आपका एडवांस में बुकिंग हो गया है, तो आप एज ए गेस्ट आए 100 में।
Thank
थैंक यू वेरी मच, धन्यवाद आप सभी का प्रभु से खास बात में जुड़ने के लिए। इस वीडियो को लाइक करें, ज़्यादा ज़्यादा शेयर करें, लोग अवेयर होंगे, एजुकेट होंगे। आपके होस्ट दोस्त